So do we really need another 50mm 1.2? If you are kind of confused of what I'm talking about, if you saw by the title, there's a company named SongRaw that just announced a new 50mm 1.2 for Sony E mount, and it's going to roll out to Nikon Z and Leica L in the future. This lens is set to be released late April, and they announced that at NAB this past week. Now I say, do we need another 50mm 1.2? Because like I said, this is going to be released for Sony E, and we already have the Sony G Master, and then we also have the Sigma for E mount, both 50mm, both 1.2, and both, or all three, really sporting a lot of the same features. Now, when you talk about the ergonomics of this new lens, there's not a lot of information on it from like pictures and stuff, but it does have an aperture ring. I'm not sure if it has like an AF MF. They didn't say anything about that. I was watching a YouTube video. I think it was Cine D, I believe was the YouTube channel. And they were speaking to a SongRaw spokesperson, and the interview was just kind of her talking about the new features of this lens. And it has an aperture ring, clickable, declick. I'm not sure if anything else it has. 72mm filtered thread, which is identical to the Sigma and the Sony. And so it's like, do we need another one from another company? But it's also kind of interesting that there is another one coming. Now, if you haven't heard of the company SongRaw, neither have I until today, but they're a company that just kind of came into fruition in 2023. And this is their first lens, 50mm 1.2. During the interview, they said that they were also working on the 85mm 1.2, and then after that, they're going to talk about the market, seeing how the consumers are liking it, and then they'll proceed forward to make more lenses. And the reason why I asked, like, is do we need another one, is because when you're a new company and you're coming into a game or a field that's already so saturated with other lenses and high performing lenses, you're going to have to take that same technology and make sure that it performs to the same as a Sony G Master or a Sigma. And so the Sigma is, like cheaper than the Sony G Master and performs optically amazing. And the Sony G Master is amazing also, and that's the most expensive one because native lenses are always the most expensive. And if you're curious, no, this is not going to be available for Canon RF mounts because Canon does not allow third-party manufacturers to make full-frame autofocus lenses for their mounts. So if I didn't say that earlier, I'm saying it now. It is full frame and it is an autofocus 50mm 1.2. And it's also their Moonlight series. This is a line that they're coming with. C-Ray announced their Aurora full frame autofocus lenses. Now SongRaw is doing the same, and it's called Moonlight or Moonlit. I think it's Moonlit, Moonlight, one of those. Now let's talk about the price real quick, because this is going to throw a lot of people, and this is really going to raise a lot of eyebrows when you hear this. So the 50mm 1.2 for the Sony G Master is right at $2,000. The 50mm for the Sigma is right at $1,400. So when this lens by SongRaw is released late April, as they are planning, it is going to roll out. They gave a price range of between $950 and $1,100. So clearly the cheaper by a lot, by over $200 from the Sigma and by $800 from the Sony. But the thing with photographers like me, and I'm sure photographers like you or videographers like you, you're gonna want a quality lens. So if you're paying $800 less than a native lens, you're going to want it to perform the same as that native lens. You want the money you spend to still make sense. Even though you're not spending $2,000, you're only spending $1,000, you still want to make it seem like you're shooting on a $2,000 lens. Now, I'm not saying that SongRaw is not capable of making that kind of lens, but I just hope they know that you're coming into a market where you're going to have to make this lens perform so crazy that people are going to say, hey, doesn't make sense to go with the Sony G Master. I'm definitely going with the SongRaw. And I'm sure that, this is their first lens. We might have to show them a little bit of grace. They may not get it perfect, and they may. I don't know. They didn't give a lot of optical proof of how the lens performs. They just said, hey, here it is. If you're at NAB this week, then you probably got a chance to get your hands on it. I'm not really sure, but the lens comes out late April. I'm hoping that I get to get my hands on it. SongRaw, if you're watching this and you need a product tester, you can loan it to me. I don't even need to own it. You don't even need to say I can have it, period. You can just loan it to me. Give it to me for 30 days, let me test it out, and I'll give you my full honest review. Now, like I said, we don't know a lot about this lens yet. This is a lens that is more so tailored to photographers. that came from the SongRaw representative, but it also will be capable for filmmakers as well. And if you had any questions, yes, it's going to be available worldwide. But like I said at the beginning, just so you're sure, just so I can reassure you and kind of reiterate, this is only going to be rolled out for Sony E mount. They said this is going to be the only one they roll out first because of the fact that Sony E mount is probably going to be the biggest market of photographers. So I shoot Sony A7 IV, I shoot Sony E mount. E mount is going to be kind of the most versatile that you can get. And even if you shoot Nikon, they're not coming out with a Z mount lens yet, but there's an E to Z adapter. So if you shoot Nikon, you can just buy the E to Z adapter and get this Sony E mount lens and attach it to your Nikon Z mount camera. So you can still do a lot of things with the Sony E mount. And I think it's smart that they roll it out with the E mount first, because of the fact that you can kind of adapt it to a bunch of different cameras. Now, I'll be the first to say that I'm intrigued by this lens. I'm intrigued by the price point. I'm intrigued by the fact that it has 13 aperture blades, the same with the Sigma. The Sony only has 11. More aperture blades typically means rounder and creamier bokeh, but you know, just because you got a lot of blades, if you don't get the glass right, that's really not going to matter a whole lot. So I'm hoping they get that right in your manufacturing process. But you know, at the end of the day, this is our first lens. We're gonna go into it, show them some grace, but also at the same time, I hope this lens comes to play and compete with the other 50mm 1.2s that we already have on the market, so that it makes sense if people want to invest. Now, I think they're gonna need to come out with some optical proof of how this lens performs if they want people to buy their lens. Not marketing your lens is not a good way to get people to buy. So you need to put something out there. I'm not sure if they're going to do like an embargo thing and that they're sending the lens to a bunch of people, and that when the lens is announced and the release date is announced, that a bunch of videos are going to come out about this lens, as we see a bunch of other products with embargo. But I'm hoping that they do that. I'm hoping that they put the lens in the hands of photographers, the videographers, so that people can get hands-on, firsthand, real-world reviews. And so when they go on YouTube and watch these videos, they know that people aren't just saying stuff just to say stuff. And but I guess we'll see. Like I said, if SongRaw needs a tester, I'm the guy. But anyway, thank you for coming to this video. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this video helped you and brought to light the company's SongRaw. And I guess we'll see what happens when they are released. So like and subscribe to the channel. When this video is released, or when the lens is released, hopefully I can get my hands on it and I can give you a example of how this lens performs and kind of compare it to some other lenses. So with that being said, that is it for today's video. Until next time, peace.